Welcome back. Today we're going to do a quick one on the 7Hz Artemis portable DAC amp. And this one is called a portable DAC amp because it does have its own battery. So this is what the front of it looks like. Maybe this is the back of it, but this one is tempered glass, otherwise known as fingerprint collecting material. The other side also has the same material, and that will be your sample indicator and also your Bluetooth pairing indicator, as you can see that it is trying to do right now. On the bottom, USB ports, one for charging, one for connecting to your PC or your phone. On the top, you do get the 4.4, 3.5, so you do get single-ended and balanced out. On this side, we do get hardware buttons, so you get your plus minus volume. That is your DAC filter, next DAC filter, skip tracks, and then your power. So nice to have hardware buttons. And the last thing on this side, and as I get fingerprints all over it, is this will be your DAC filter. There's a little LED in there that will kind of blink at you and tell you which DAC filter you are using. So additionally, you do get a 7Hz flat cable for connecting to your phone or your PC. So I think that was everything that was in the box. So what is special about this one? It is an ES9039Q2M DAC chip. So that is the newest series from ESS, or at least the newest one that they are actually finding in devices that are being released recently. You do get 8 to 10 hours of battery life on the battery that's inside the unit. Bluetooth, it does support LDAC codec, so for high-res codec, for high-res music, that's what you would use, and make sure you look at that for support on your phone. That's not an iPhone thing, that is mostly for Android people. And you do get, on the outputs, you do get 320 milliwatts on the 3.5 and 405 on the balanced out. So, and you do get, I think, 8 DAC filters. So it does have a built-in microphone for calls, and I'm not sure which one is the microphone. If both of these are microphones, which is somewhat likely, but I didn't actually take any calls with it, but it is possible to take calls with it. So most important thing that I look for in dongles is transparency, and I look for ESS chips in particular to have a very transparent sound, uncolored. You know, I should be hearing the tuning that was intended on my IMs, not what is coming from some box that I am plugging into. So does this one pass the ESS sniff test? And I say, yes, it absolutely does. There's a small dose of maybe a little bit of warmth on the low end, but you do get that clean, accurate, kind of analytical, kind of middle, as that people would kind of refer to on ESS, and then extension on the upper end. I think it has a very classic ESS sound, so yes, I think it absolutely does pass the sniff test. And as such, there's really no need to dive into bass, mids, and treble. It's flat enough and extended, just as you would expect from an ESS device. If you like warm, overly colored, smoother profiles, this isn't the one for you. I would say this one tends to hover around the neutral, and I would say it hovers around transparent. That is what I prefer. I think this goes back to a question that someone used to ask me all the time when I used to do more dongles. And the first comment was, aren't dongles supposed to be transparent? And it sort of rings true with me. And I think, yes, I definitely prefer my source devices, even my desktops, to have a more transparent. I don't like a whole lot of coloring. I like ESS chips for their accuracy and their clean middle sections. So I think this one really fit my preferences. And did I even change EQs for Artemis? I did not. I think this is a really important part for me because I like to have my dongles resemble my desktops, and those are flattish and extended as well. And this one fits right along with my desktop sounds because I have desktop ESS as well. And as such, I think the biggest dongle compliment that I would give this one is I had to look over and double check what I was listening to, whether it was my ESS DAC amp in my desktop set or it was Artemis 39. And for me, that transparency, this neutral style where it was hard to, I had to really think about which one I was listening to is what I would give the biggest compliment. I know people rank dongles and they say it's super, super sound, but for me, it comes down to transparency. I want to hear the tuning that is provided by my IAM, not the one that is being colored by some DAC amp. So how did I use this one? USB connected and 4.4 balanced. I think that tends to bring out the amp scaling in your IEMs. It tends to make them where it sounds best, to make your IEM shine. I said this on the 5 review. I think the 4.4, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily go as far as say it sounds better, but I would say it makes your IEM sound better. Just a little bit more power, I think, tends to tighten them up and make them shine just a little bit brighter. So I tended to use 4.4. I thought that's exactly where this unit sounds best. But it does have Bluetooth, and the Bluetooth definitely works. And it seems like other devices sound a little bit more transparent on the Bluetooth. And Bluetooth is a really difficult one. In one way, Bluetooth will always sound like Bluetooth. It will always have some artifacts. It will always have some kind of compression, some kind of lack of transparency because you are compressing the music and transferring it over this way. But I would say it doesn't have a noise floor, and maybe it doesn't sound as dynamic. But I think for me, it was really hard to kind of go back and forth between the two. I think the 4.4 sounds really, really good. And then when you switch to BT, I was like, it kind of sounds okay. I would use it in a pinch, but, I think it kind of gets back to this. BT will always sound like BT. And if you aren't a BT fan or use BT all the time, then it doesn't quite sound as good as what the wire connection would be. So I prefer the wire connection on this one without a doubt. But I think some of the newer protocols are getting quite good. aptX Adaptive is actually pretty good. Samsung Scalable is actually pretty good. I definitely tried 990 kilobit on this one, and it kind of works fine. But does it beat out the wire connection? It does not. So I stuck with the wire connection. So what about the DAC filters? And I'll say absolutely yes. Please cycle through the DAC filters with the button on the side and do them by ear. If you are an ESS fan and you're really used to hearing ESS DAC style DAC amps, really cycle through them and listen for the emphasis. Is the emphasis on the upper mids? Is it somewhere else? That'll be sort of the key to getting it to zone into where your other, and that's why I said the biggest compliment was I kind of stepped through all the filters and I got it to the point where it sounded close enough to my desktop where the emphases were right, or there was no emphasis is really what I was going at. If you don't like the upper mid emphasis and tilt in the balance on some filters, others are closer to what I was expecting, and that's exactly what happened on this one. I think the first few, I think maybe there was a little bit more upper mid emphasis than I was expecting. And then as you cycle through the filters and keep on stepping through them, that kind of goes away. And really hard to figure out what was going on in the filters. But what I noticed was the upper mid emphasis. And maybe it's not even upper mid, maybe it's a little bit later. But a slight emphasis where I wasn't expecting it to be. But keep moving through the filters and that will go away. And it will sound kind of end-to-end linear as an ESS should. And, it was all good. But most definitely cycle through the filters. That will be worth the 10 minutes of your time to cycle through them by ear and hear the differences. So a couple nitpicks on this one. Is it a little bit pricey? It's like $150, maybe. No app, no screen, no case. I think cases are becoming an issue. They should, if you're going to put a fingerprint magnet, glass style case on it or covers on it, I think it's nice to have a case so it doesn't get all scratched up and fingerprinted, but they also like to show it off, so I kind of understand that point of view. And then USB charging is not PD, so I tend to notice these on devices that if you have a USB-C to USB-C, it tends to be PD, or at least some modern charging protocol that this will not support, and it will not charge off of that. So I tend to go back to a USB-A to USB-C cable, and that always charges devices like this one. Artemis is certainly not the only device where you will notice this, and I just happen to keep them around for this exact reason. So more of a nitpick than really anything else. So that is what I got on Artemis 39. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.